men's lives were being changed. It was the greatest social development program this country has ever seen. Now, I believe in the next PLP government, you're going to see National Youth Service come to fruition in its true form. And that's the next step of it. And that's where we're headed.
But actually not just come to the fore, but be brought back.
Exactly.
Because again, under the former administration, we had a National Youth Service program in North Andros, and there again, that was stopped.
Yes.
You see, and when we're talking about institutionalization, these programs were all being institutionalized through the institution of government,
right.
The institution of social services, the institution of the police force, the institution of the Ministry of Health.
Working together.
They all working together, coming together, and putting these initiatives forward.
Crime is running rampant throughout our region, Lionel Butler. And it is said to be the fever chart of a sick society. Throughout the region, we have a high incidence of crime.
Yes.
Is this society a sick society?
I think this society is well on its way. If there aren't initiatives put in place, if there's not legislation put in place. For instance, in my opinion, governments are successive and they are continuous. I feel as though a new government should not come into power and stop and review something that's working, something that's curbing crime, something that is empowering young Bahamians, and urban renewal was doing that. Having the police inside the schools was curbing crime in the schools. We just had a riot last week in our secondary schools. Why aren't the police presence still there if the teachers aren't given the leeway to discipline students? I think something must be done, and I think it goes all the way back to education. If you look at the numbers and the statistics speaks for themselves, the persons that create violent crimes are persons that are undereducated and dropouts out of high school, persons that didn't go on to tertiary level education. If we put these fundamentals back in place, then we would curb a lot of the social ills in this country.
We blame the government for crime when the PLP was in office between 2002, 2007. We heard people talk about what the PLP should do. Today we have the same situation, and we have people saying what the F&M government should do. But there are some other moralizing institutions of the society. Shouldn't the burden really be placed on these moralizing institutions rather than the government?
Well, the thing is that when you talk about society, I think it's important that we realize that society is made up of institutions. Institutions. You have the church, you have the family, you have the school environment, you have certainly the government and its institutions, and certainly the private sector. Crime is a collective responsibility of the society. But the fact of the matter is that it all depends on government's response that will determine the extent to which we have crime in our society. And there's no question in my mind that the Free National Movement government has failed the people. The fact is, from 2007 to the current, crime has increased in every category. As a matter of fact, from 2007 to 2009, we have experienced the highest ever recorded murder in the Bahamas. This year we're on track. We've had 3 young women shot last night, 2 young men dead in Grand Bahama. Where's it going to stop? The fact is that the government is there to ensure that the criminal justice system is working. And the system has collapsed under the Free National Movement government. By their cancellation of the school-based policing that she spoke of, we're soon going to end up with dead children in our schools.
Mr. Jones,
or administrators.
Mr. Jones, it's about leadership at all levels, whether it be parents, the church, but at the government level, as my colleague indicated, we believe a paradigm shift in how this country is governed. The Prime Minister made a statement and said that the Bahamian society or Bahamian economy is sick and in need of medicine. And it's his aim that this budget tomorrow will be the medicine for this ailment. Well, I'm afraid to tell you that it's not going to be the medicine, because he's taking the wrong approach. And what has happened is this approach is not necessarily in the best interest of our country because of the way how he governs his responsibilities. It's either my way or the highway, for example. And I'll give you a statistic by the World Bank, it's called the World Bank Ease of Doing Business. Out of 183 countries, the Bahamas fell from 58 to 69 in a place where it's easy to do business. So it shows that last year, over the last few years, this became a very frustrating place for investors to do business. If you think it's that bad for investors, how do you think it is right now for Bahamians? We can't get anything done in this country. The basic systems that we depend on, like protection for our children in school, is not being met.
No.
And what we get from the Prime Minister is this arrogant approach of, well, this is what he's going to do. And so here we are.
In addition to which, the new government, the FNM government, came to office and destabilized the Ministry of Social Services.
In which way?
They destabilized it. First of all, you would recall that the Christie administration made the Ministry of Social Services a full ministry, so that it would be able to reach out and deal with the myriad of social issues that we have in this country. The Ingram government came to office. What did they do? They took social services from being a full ministry, tacked it on to the Ministry of Health. Then, less than a year, 2 years later, or a year and a half later, they moved it from there and tacked it on to labor, destabilizing the ministry. They derailed urban renewal. They destabilized the Ministry of Social Services, and now look what you have. You have a Minister of Health, you have a Minister of Labor. Nobody really could focus on it, except, of course, the Minister of State, and she is answerable to her substantive ministers. And what they have done actually is not put in place the programs or given social services the resources that they need and the manpower that they need to deal with our problems, until the government comes to grips with the fact that social issues impact crime. And we must stop putting a Band-Aid on an open wound. But we must deal with the root of the problem. We're going to continue to go downhill as we're doing. And I can tell you the next Christie government will ensure that social services is given a full ministry the way it ought to be. We will bring back urban renewal. We will bring back National Youth Service. We will bring back the school-based policing, and we will certainly give them the resources that they need to
I hear
have.
you, Mrs. Griffin and Mr. Bell, and
Yes.
Dr. Major and Butler, and you speak passionately about it, but when you speak, you seem to put the onus on the government to deal with the social problems in the society. And there is a view that the home, the school, the church, they are failing our people. Aren't we over-relying on the government of the Bahamas to deal with the issue of crime and social decadence?
If I can answer that in a two-point form. The first point is this, Mr. Jones. First of all, I want to go on Ms. Griffin's point that the government is putting a Band-Aid approach. Instead of addressing the issues centered around the justice system with getting these cases heard before the court, the government now is attempting to legislate what will constitute reasonable time. And they're saying it will be, what, 3 years? 3 years will constitute a reasonable time. What the government is saying, and I want the Bahamian public to hear this, it means that if me or you or our brothers or sisters are suspected of a crime and are arrested and charged, we're presumed to be innocent. But the government is now saying that we can incarcerate you, or we will seek to incarcerate you for up to 3 years. They're saying that the court, that will constitute reasonable time, and as a result, you will not be entitled to bail, when in fact you are presumed innocent. What should have been happening is the government should now say, if we could try some cases, and there are some cases, very recently a case happened last year, and they heard it in record time. There was another matter, an extortion case, they heard it in record time. If they could try these cases in less than a year, then certainly they must be able to try all the cases.
If a man is innocent or presumed innocent until proven guilty, do you have a problem with an individual who is accused of murder getting bail?
I have a problem with it, but the issue is this.
I have a problem with
him getting bail.
But the man is innocent until proven guilty.
But let me explain, Mr. Jones. The fact is, he is still presumed innocent.
Yes.
And if it is that he is not tried within a reasonable time, then his constitutional right, he is entitled to bail. You see, what we must do, Mr. Jones, is to strike a balance between the rights of the victim, the rights of society, and that of the accused. What has been happening, or what will happen, I submit to you, is that we will further marginalize the young men of our society. When we attempt to incarcerate them, we've had